Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today, I'll be sharing a story with you. The movie begins in 2148 with a man named Militon, an astronaut, talking to his commander. His commander asks him about this recent mission to Mars and how he's doing, physically and emotionally. Militon tells him that he's doing well, so his commander tells him about a new mission where he'll be sent to Alpha Centauri. His commander then adds that he'll need a partner on this trip, but Militon doesn't like that because he works alone. But his commander tells him that this new partner is going to be a cyborg named Nemani. So with no choice, Militon agrees to the mission and the request for a new partner. In the next scene, Militon can be seen with Nemani, who's still unconscious, in the ship heading towards Alpha Centauri. He initiates the ship for liftoff, and they take off, ending up in space, heading towards their destination. Some days pass and it's now day 19. Militon, who was hesitant to activate Nemani at first, decides to wake her up for some intimate time to satisfy his carnal desires. The both of them get it on, and after holding hands, Nemani starts to ask him about the other women in his life before. He tells her that his past lovers had always hurt him, causing him to lose trust in women. Soon, day 41 arrives, and Nemani's readings show that Militon has been using her mainly for intimate pleasure and not proper work. He then commands the cyborg to dance for him and act all innocent, treating him like he's a stranger. He then tries to kiss her, but with her new settings, she rejects him. However, Militon doesn't care and decides to take advantage of her. After he's done, he leaves her alone crying. Later, Nemani can be seen charging while Militon creepily stares at her, waiting for her to be at max battery again. Soon, 298 days have passed, and Militon's commander calls him up to check on his status. He tells him that the ship's working fine and is still on its way to Alpha Centauri. The commander then asks him how he's getting along with Nemani. He replies by saying that he still prefers working alone. The commander then asks him to change Nemani's mode to service rather than relationship, so Nemani can help him work on the ship. However, he doesn't obey her. So now the commander asks his cyborg to give an analysis of Militon, and she tells him that he uses her for mainly desires and is carrying out his mission pretty well. However, that shocks him, realizing that the cyborg is supervising and informing his bosses about his status. So after the call with the commander, he asks his ship if he can delete Nemani's information on him, but the ship doesn't allow him to because it requires a higher security clearance. So in the following days, Militon keeps Nemani in relationship mode, ignoring his commander about switching her to service. Now one day, while Militon's repairing the ship, Nemani's argument mode suddenly activates. So she picks a fight with him and scolds him for being so smelly. Militon's shocked by this, so he immediately uses his remote to change her mode. So feeling curious, while Nemani's charging, Militon goes to ask the ship if he can reboot his robot because he feels there's a defect. The ship tells him that Nemani will use the experiences she had with him to shape her reboot, which means she might become more human rather than robot. Militon then realizes that he can make Nemani into his dream partner and immediately goes to find her. He starts doing a manual check on Nemani, but as he's doing so, the air pressure in the ship suddenly drops, causing the ship to go into turbulence. That caused Nemani to fall to the ground, making Militon all worried. He quickly adjusts the air pressure, and after the ship stabilizes, he rushes towards Nemani. Fortunately, nothing happened to her, and Militon apologizes. In the next scene, Militon is talking with the ship again. He's asking how he can have a higher security clearance to access Nemani's full software. So the ship tells him that only in special emergency situations would he be allowed to have access. Well, that intrigues him, and he leaves. He heads on down to the control room, asking the computer for the ship's blueprints. He then starts ripping out wires and destroying the ship in hopes to be granted special access to Nemani. Soon the ship starts going into major turbulence, and now heading off course from its original destination. So with no choice, the ship grants him access to everything, including Nemani. After stabilizing everything, he immediately heads to Nemani and starts deleting her software and information on him. He then reboots her up, and not long Nemani does wake up. However, with improper software, she starts having emotions, scolding Militon for deleting her software, and informs him that she is not free at all, like how he wanted. She adds that she's a property of the establishment, and that removing her software doesn't mean that she won't be anymore, and that she still has the duty to complete their mission. She then leaves, leaving Militin disappointed. Militin then tries to amend their relationship by confessing his feelings for her, but Namani tells him that his emotions are affecting their mission and says that she'll no longer give him intimacy. So Militin tries to kiss her, but Namani, who is now in full control over herself, kicks him, and he falls on the ground. In the following days, Namani and Militin get into a fight where she tells him to exercise more because his physical health is crucial for the success of the mission. But Militin gets mad thinking she's punishing him after what he'd done to her earlier. He tells her that she's mad at him for taking advantage of her, and now that she's set free, she's taking revenge on him. He then leaves. Now the next day, Militin goes on call with his commander. He says the ship's damage was caused by him. He also says that he had removed Namani's software. This shocks his commander, telling him that he's in danger, but Militin says that he had saved her from him and is now free. Fearing for the worst, his commander calls Namani over and speaks with her. Asking for an analysis report, Namani says the mission is still going according to plan, which relieves the commander. In the following days, Militin can be seen really depressed without Namani's love, as he only gets into more fights with her. This makes Namani worried, fearing for their mission, seeing how depressed Militin is. So while he's sleeping, she conducts a health test on him and confirms that he is indeed depressed. So later on, she goes and talks with him. Militin asks her why she's hurting him all the time, and she says that she didn't mean to hurt him and apologizes for not being the dream woman he wanted. So unable to cure him, Namani goes to the computer and asks for help. The ship tells her that the only way to do this is to remove the source of his pain. Namani knows that she's the one causing the pain, so she thinks of a way to self-destruct. She then heads into her charging pod, but Militin sees this and tells her that her next charge isn't due for a month, but she doesn't reply and sheds a tear for him. Militin, who's still heartbroken, doesn't ask any more questions and leaves. Namani then starts floating in the pod and ends up getting a power shortage. This causes the ship to black out, so Militin quickly goes to turn the power back on. After the ship fully restores, he asks it if Namani's alright, but the computer tells him that her battery core is damaged. So he quickly rushes back to Namani and asks the ship how to fix her. The computer tells him that there's no way to recharge and save her because that charging pod's destroyed. So Militin comes up with a plan to plug Namani directly into the ship's battery core, which is outside the ship. The computer tells him that just 10 minutes outside will kill him. But Militin doesn't listen and cuts Namani open, removing that battery. He then puts on a spacesuit to head outside. As he does, he asks the ship how much time Namani has before she passes away completely. The computer tells him 15 minutes, so he quickly makes his way to the core. He places Namani's battery inside that core and lets it charge, but the sun's radiation increases, which overheats Militin's suit, causing him to faint. He then ends up drifting in space, but fortunately he manages to wake up with only 3 minutes left. He takes the battery and rushes back to the ship. He immediately heads to Namani and manages to put her battery pack in, just in time. But because of those injuries from radiation, he faints before Namani can wake up. Soon, Namani wakes up and finds Militin unconscious. Our movie ends with Militin in the arms of Namani. Always a pleasure having you guys around. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you had a good time today, and get ready for the next one.